She cheated on me last night. I know because I saw it with my own eyes, subtle, nearly imperceptible signs that would have meant nothing to anyone else. The way she leaned in just a little too close. The way her laughter rang a touch too genuine. The way his fingertips lingered against hers for a heartbeat longer than necessary. It happened at our own dinner party. I should have been playing the role of the perfect host, refilling wine glasses, laughing at stale jokes, basking in the glow of the life Olivia and I had built together. Instead, I found myself watching, observing, unraveling. The man was a stranger to me. Tall, well-dressed, with the kind of easy confidence that comes from knowing you're desired. I didn't know his name, but Olivia did. She knew it well enough to whisper it, to say it with that breathy, conspiratorial lilt reserved for private conversations. It started with stolen glances across the candlelit table, a flicker of something behind her eyes. Amusement? Guilt? I wasn't sure yet, but I kept watching. Her fingers grazed his wrist when she reached for the bottle of Bordeaux. A casual touch, if I hadn't been looking for it. But I was, and I saw everything. I should have confronted her then and there, should have slammed my glass onto the table and demanded answers. But I didn't. Instead, I smiled. I poured more wine. I played my part. Because tonight wasn't just about Olivia's betrayal. It was about what came next. I didn't sleep that night. Long after the last guest had stumbled out, after Olivia had kissed my cheek with wine-sweet lips and retreated upstairs, I sat alone in the dimly lit dining room, running my fingers over the rim of my empty glass. The air was thick with the scent of burnt-out candles and spilled wine. The plates sat untouched, half-eaten meals abandoned in the haste of laughter and conversation. It should have been an ordinary evening, one of the many dinner parties Olivia and I had hosted over the years, where friends gathered, where stories were told, where we played the part of the perfect couple. Except this time, something had changed. I saw it in the way she looked at him, the slow drag of her gaze across his lips as he spoke, the way her pupils dilated just slightly when he leaned in too close. It wasn't the look of a woman politely entertaining a guest. It was the look of someone drowning in temptation. And I knew, deep in the marrow of my bones, I had lost her. The knowledge settled in me like a slow poison. I could have confronted her then, stormed upstairs, shaken her awake, demanded to know how long this had been going on. I could have let my rage consume me, torn through our carefully curated life like a wildfire, leaving only the truth behind. But I didn't. Instead, I sat there, letting the betrayal settle into my veins, letting it root itself in every quiet corner of my mind. Because if Olivia thought I would go down without a fight, she was wrong. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of a screaming match, of an ugly, desperate confrontation where she could twist the story, paint me as paranoid or insecure. No, I would give her something much worse. A reckoning. So I waited. When I finally climbed the stairs, the house was silent except for the faint hum of the heater. Our bedroom door was slightly ajar, a golden sliver of light spilling into the hallway. I pushed it open carefully. There she was, lying on her side, curled beneath the thick comforter, her dark hair spilling across the pillow. Her breathing was slow, steady, peaceful. She looked untouched, as if she hadn't spent the night undressing another man with her eyes, as if she hadn't betrayed me in plain sight. I stood there for a long time, watching her, studying the softness of her features, the way her lips parted slightly as she exhaled. There was a time when this sight, Olivia in the quiet glow of our bedroom, filled me with nothing but love. Now, all I felt was a hollow sort of curiosity. Who was she when I wasn't looking? Who was she when she was alone with him? And just how long had she been slipping through my fingers without me noticing? As I turned away, I caught my reflection in the mirror across the room. My own face looked unfamiliar, sharper, colder. A stranger staring back at me. I was going to find out the truth. And when I did, Olivia wouldn't see it coming. The morning after the dinner party, Olivia was different. She wasn't distant, not in the way you'd expect someone to be after a betrayal. She was lighter, relaxed, as if some invisible weight had been lifted off her shoulders. It made me sick. She stood by the kitchen counter, humming softly as she poured herself a cup of coffee, wearing the same silk robe I had bought her last Christmas. The scent of fresh espresso filled the air, but it did nothing to settle the bitterness in my gut. "Sleep well?" she asked, her voice smooth, effortless. I wanted to laugh. Instead, I leaned against the doorway, folding my arms across my chest. Did you? She glanced up at me then, her lips curving slightly. A lazy, easy smile. Like a baby. She was good at this. Too good. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I might have believed her. I studied her carefully. The way her fingers curled around the coffee cup, the way she moved with a kind of practiced grace, as if nothing in our world had shifted. But I knew better now. Every touch, every look, every casual brush of her hand against mine over the past few months, it had all been a lie. You were quiet last night, she said, stirring sugar into her coffee. Did something happen? I almost smiled at the irony. Did something happen? Oh, Olivia. I could have called her out then. Could have told her that I saw everything. The lingering glances, the stolen touches. I could have shattered her illusion, forced her to admit the truth right there in our kitchen, between the scent of coffee and the soft morning light. But I didn't, because I wanted more than a confession. I wanted the whole story. So, I shrugged, keeping my expression neutral. Just tired. She nodded, satisfied with my answer, and took a slow sip of her coffee. It was almost laughable, how easy this was for her. How smoothly she slipped back into routine, as if she weren't hiding an entire world from me. But that was the thing about liars. They only feared getting caught once they knew you were watching. And Olivia had no idea that I had been watching for a long, long time. The first clue. I waited until she left for the gym before I started searching. Olivia was predictable, down to the minute. She had a morning workout routine at a boutique fitness studio across town, one that conveniently kept her away from home for at least 2 hours. It gave me just enough time. I started with her phone. She rarely left it unattended, but today, in her rush to get out the door, she had. It sat on the nightstand, the screen dark and unassuming. I picked it up, my heart hammering against my ribs. I had never been the type to invade her privacy. Never felt the need to before. But then again, I had never thought my wife was capable of sleeping with another man, either. I pressed the power button. The screen blinked to life, her lock screen appearing. An old photo of us from a trip to Santorini, our arms wrapped around each other, the Aegean Sea stretched out behind us. I almost laughed. How fitting that even now, she was hiding behind the image of a perfect marriage. I tapped in her passcode. Wrong. I tried again. Wrong. The realization settled like a stone in my stomach. Olivia had changed it, and she had done it recently. She had never needed to before. We had always been open with each other, our devices unlocked, our lives shared. But now? Now she had something to hide. I set the phone down, exhaling slowly. This wasn't over. Not even close. A second chance at the truth. I turned to the next best thing, her laptop. It was still on her vanity table, half open from where she had been using it last night. Olivia was careful, but everyone had weak spots. I clicked the trackpad, the screen illuminating. It asked for a password. This time, I got it on the first try. The familiarity of her digital world opened up before me. Emails, calendar events, browsing history. I scanned through them quickly, looking for anything out of place. And then I found it. A name. Daniel Pierce. It was in her emails, buried deep in her archived messages. A reservation confirmation for a hotel 2 weeks ago, one I had no knowledge of. The details were brief, almost clinical. One night. Executive suite. 2 guests. I stared at the screen, my hands curling into fists. Daniel Pierce. I didn't recognize the name, but I didn't need to, because now, I knew exactly what I was looking for. And Olivia had just made her first mistake. Daniel Pierce. I repeated the name in my head, memorizing the way it looked on the screen, the way it felt like a blade against my skin. The hotel reservation had been made 2 weeks ago. Just enough time for the evidence to grow cold. Just enough time for Olivia to assume she had gotten away with it. But she was wrong. I wasn't the kind of man to let things go. I pulled out my phone, typing his name into a search engine. I didn't know what I expected. Maybe a social media profile, maybe nothing at all. But the results came fast, a flood of links and images. And there he was. A photo popped up first. Daniel Pierce. Early 40s. Wealthy. A senior executive at some high-profile investment firm downtown. The kind of man who owned expensive suits and even more expensive cars. The kind of man Olivia would have been drawn to. I scrolled further. His LinkedIn profile was polished, curated to perfection, Harvard-educated, a career spanning decades in finance. A public image so pristine it almost mocked me. Then, I found something even better. A picture. It was buried in an old business article from last year. Daniel standing in a sleek hotel bar, whiskey glass in hand, his smile sharp and confident. And beside him? Olivia. My breath caught. She was right there, in the background of the image, slightly blurred but unmistakable. Laughing. Smiling. Her body angled just slightly toward him, like gravity itself was pulling her in his direction. My stomach twisted, while rising in my throat. How long had this been going on? Weeks? Months? Longer? I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay calm. This wasn't the time to fall apart. No, this was the time to play the game. The first move. I took screenshots of everything, the emails, the pictures, the reservation details. I compiled them into a neat little folder on my phone. Evidence. Proof. The foundation of what would come next. Because Olivia thought she was in control. She thought she was pulling the strings, keeping her secrets wrapped up in a perfect little lie. She had no idea that I was about to take that control back. For the rest of the day, I played my role perfectly. When Olivia came home from the gym, I greeted her with a kiss on the cheek. When she asked if I wanted to go out for dinner, I said yes. When she laughed at some joke she made, I smiled. I let her believe nothing had changed. But inside, I was burning. I wanted to ask her about Daniel right then and there, watch her stumble over her lies, see the guilt flicker across her face. But that wasn't enough. I wanted her to feel the weight of her own deception before I even said a word. And so, I planned. For the next few days, I watched her even closer. Every phone call, every text, every moment of silence that stretched too long between us, I took note of it all. And when I finally found what I was looking for, it almost made me laugh. The second mistake. It was a Wednesday evening when it happened. Olivia was in the shower, her phone resting on the bathroom counter. Unlocked. It was a rare mistake, one I doubted she had made often. But I wasn't about to waste the opportunity. I picked it up, scrolling through her messages. She was careful, deleting conversations, keeping things clean. But no one was perfect. And Olivia had left just one trace behind. A message thread. DP. I tapped it open. Most of the messages were gone, wiped clean. But one was still there. A single text. Tonight. Same place. 8 p.m. My pulse thundered in my ears. Daniel Pierce. Tonight. 8 p.m. I set the phone back down, my hands steady, my mind clear. So this is how she wanted to play it. Good. Because I would be there, too. But Olivia wouldn't know it. Not yet. 8 p.m. That was when she would meet him. That was when the lie she had been living would collide with the truth she had been avoiding. And I would be there to witness it all. I spent the next few hours preparing. Not just physically, choosing what to wear, deciding where to sit, how to blend in, but mentally. I couldn't let my anger betray me. Not yet. Olivia was too good at lying, too skilled at twisting reality. If I confronted her outright, she would find a way to manipulate the situation, paint me as the irrational husband who had simply misunderstood. No. I wanted her to know she had been caught. I wanted her to feel powerless in the web she had spun. So, instead of calling her out, I waited. When Olivia left the house at 7:30, she was effortless. No tension. No hesitation. Just a simple kiss on my cheek, the same way she always did. Dinner with Claire, she said, smiling as she adjusted her earrings. Don't wait up. It was almost impressive how easily the lie rolled off her tongue. But I just smiled back. Have fun. The moment the door closed behind her, I was already moving. The setup. The restaurant was upscale, dimly lit, designed for discretion. The kind of place where businessmen conducted affairs under the guise of late meetings, where whispered conversations were worth more than the overpriced wine. I arrived before her. I chose a table near the back, half shielded by a decorative partition, where I had a clear view of the entrance. The air buzzed with low conversations, the clinking of glasses, the rustle of expensive suits. At exactly 8 p.m., Olivia walked in, and he was already waiting for her. Daniel Pierce. Seeing them together was like taking a bullet I had been expecting but still wasn't ready for. She smiled at him, my wife, and it was a real smile, the kind that used to be meant for me. Her hand brushed his arm as she slid into the booth, her body angling toward him in a way that was almost instinctive. I gripped my glass, forcing myself to stay calm. They leaned in close, their voices low, intimate. I couldn't hear everything, but I didn't need to. Her body language spoke louder than words. She was comfortable with him. Too comfortable. I could have ended it right there. I could have walked up to their table, shattered their illusion, exposed them in front of everyone. But that would have been too easy. I wanted her to feel it first. I wanted her to know that her carefully constructed lie was unraveling. So, I waited. And then, I took my phone out. I snapped a picture. One. Then another. Then another. Each one a nail in the coffin she had built for herself. She was still laughing when I got up, leaving the restaurant without a word. Because the real game had only just begun. I drove home in silence. No music. No distractions. Just the steady hum of the engine and the rhythmic thud of my pulse in my ears. I should have been angry. Enraged. Furious enough to storm back into that restaurant, grab Olivia by the wrist, and drag her out in front of everyone. But I wasn't. I was calm. Because anger is impulsive. Anger makes mistakes. And I wasn't going to make mistakes. I had evidence now. The pictures on my phone told a story Olivia could no longer rewrite. I pulled into the driveway, stepping into the dimly lit house. It felt different now. Colder. Like the home we had built together had been stripped of all meaning. The walls, the furniture, the framed photos of our life together. It was all just set dressing in a play that had long since ended. I poured myself a drink, sinking into the chair in our living room. The ice clinked softly against the glass as I took a slow sip, staring at the door, waiting. Because Olivia would come home tonight, slide into bed next to me, and pretend nothing had changed. She still thought she was safe. And that was my greatest weapon. Midnight lies. It was almost 11 p.m. when I heard the soft click of the front door unlocking. I didn't move, didn't turn my head, just listened as her heels clicked across the hardwood floor, as she moved through the space like it belonged to her. She had no idea she was stepping into a battlefield. "Hey, you're still up?" Her voice was light, casual. Line came so easily to her now. I let a pause stretch between us before glancing up. "Yeah, couldn't sleep." She smiled, moving toward me, her silhouette illuminated by the dim glow of the kitchen light. She smelled of wine and expensive perfume, not hers. She leaned down, brushing a soft kiss against my temple, the same lips that had just been smiling for him. I swallowed the bile rising in my throat. "How was dinner?" She pulled back, shrugging off her coat. "Oh, you know Claire," she said breezily, tossing her bag onto the counter. She barely let me get a word in. "We ended up at that little wine bar after. You would have been bored out of your mind. Lie after lie after lie." I watched her closely, looking for cracks in the performance. But Olivia was good. Too good. So I tested her. "Where'd you guys go?" I asked, swirling the last of my drink. Just out of curiosity. She hesitated for half a second. It was barely noticeable, just the slightest shift, the faintest flicker of something in her eyes before she plastered on another smile. "That French place on Oakwood. The one with the tiny portions and the pretentious waiter?" She rolled her eyes. "I swear, they charged us $20 for a salad made of 2 leaves." She said it so effortlessly. If I hadn't just watched her across a candlelit table with Daniel Pierce, I might have believed her. But I had been there. I had seen it all. And now, I knew exactly how far she was willing to go. I stared at her, at the way she moved through our home so effortlessly, so casually, as if she hadn't just spent the night in another man's presence, as if she hadn't just sat across from Daniel Pierce, drinking wine, laughing, touching him. She had lied to me before, but never like this. Never so smoothly, so fearlessly. She thought she was untouchable, and I was about to prove her wrong. I leaned back in my chair, setting my glass down on the table. "Sounds like a long night," I said, my voice even. "Did you take any pictures?" She paused, midway through unzipping her boots. Just for a second, barely noticeable. Then, she let out a soft laugh. "You know me. I always forget to take pictures when I'm out." Lie. Olivia was the kind of woman who documented everything. Every dinner, every vacation, every meaningless event was plastered across her social media in perfectly filtered snapshots. But tonight? Tonight, There was nothing. I exhaled slowly, tilting my head. That's a shame. Would have been nice to see. She shrugged, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. You didn't miss much. I almost smiled. Because, for the first time, I wasn't the one missing something. A silent war. She stretched, yawning. I'm exhausted, she murmured, giving me a soft, lazy smile. I think I'm gonna shower and head to bed. I nodded, watching as she disappeared down the hallway. A few minutes later, the water started running. She had no idea. No idea that while she was washing away the remnants of her night with him, I was preparing for something much bigger. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the pictures I had taken earlier. Olivia and Daniel, heads bent close, lost in each other. Her hand on his arm, his fingers grazing her wrist. Undeniable. But I wasn't going to send them to her. Not yet. I had a better plan. I tapped on my messages and pulled up a contact. Daniel Pierce. I had found his number earlier in the night, buried in Olivia's emails. I typed a message. Daniel, I think we should talk. And then, I hit send. The trap was set. The message was sent. I stared at my phone, waiting, watching. A part of me wondered if Daniel would even respond. Maybe he would ignore it. Maybe he would go straight to Olivia, warning her that something was off. Maybe he would realize, too late, that the game they had been playing was about to turn on them. The seconds ticked by. Then, my phone buzzed. A new message. Who is this? I almost laughed. He was already nervous. Good. I typed back. I'm Olivia's husband. We need to talk. This time, the response took longer. Almost a full minute before the familiar buzz in my hand. I don't know what you're talking about. Liar. It was almost amusing, how predictable they both were. How quickly they clung to their fabrications, even when the walls were closing in. I leaned forward, my fingers steady as I typed my next message. Don't insult me, Daniel. I know everything. And then, just for good measure, I attached the pictures. There was no response for a while. Long enough for me to imagine what he was doing, staring at his phone, pulse racing, realizing that the safe little world he had built with Olivia was crumbling. Then, finally. Meet me. Tomorrow. Noon. The cafe on 5th. I smiled. Checkmate. Morning lies and a silent goodbye. When I woke up the next morning, Olivia was already in the kitchen, sipping coffee, flipping through her phone like nothing was wrong. Like she hadn't spent the night in bed next to me, completely unaware of what I had done. She glanced up when I walked in, smiling. Morning. I studied her for a long moment, searching for something, remorse, guilt, even the slightest hesitation. Nothing. She was as smooth as ever. It almost made me admire her. Almost. I poured myself a cup of coffee, leaning against the counter. What's your plan for today? She stretched, sighing. Meetings in the morning. Might grab lunch with Claire if I have time. Why? Claire. Another lie. I took a sip of my coffee, the warmth doing nothing to thaw the cold rage inside me. Just curious. She nodded, completely at ease. You. I set my mug down, wiping my hands on a dish towel. I'm going to meet your lover, Olivia. I'm going to look him in the eye, and I'm going to make sure he understands exactly what he's taken from me. But I just smiled. Not much. Might run a few errands. She kissed me on the cheek before heading upstairs to get dressed, humming softly to herself. And for the first time since this all began, I wondered how I had ever loved her. The meeting. Noon. The cafe on 5th. I arrived early, choosing a table near the back where I had a clear view of the entrance. I ordered a black coffee, barely touching it as I waited. And then, at exactly 12:04, Daniel Pierce walked in. He was even more polished in daylight, expensive suit, confident stride, the kind of man who was used to getting what he wanted. But not today. Today, he looked off. Uneasy. Good. His eyes scanned the cafe until he found me. He hesitated for just a moment, then made his way over. I didn't stand when he reached the table. I just gestured to the seat across from me. He sat down. For a long moment, we said nothing. Then, finally, he exhaled. What do you want? I tilted my head, watching him. That's a funny question, Daniel. I could ask you the same thing. His jaw tightened. Listen, I don't know what you think. I slid my phone across the table, the screen still open to the pictures of him and Olivia. His mouth snapped shut. I let the silence stretch between us, watching as he struggled to find the right words. I wanted him uncomfortable. I wanted him to feel what I had felt when I watched them together. But most of all, I wanted to see if he would lie to my face. Finally, he cleared his throat. It's complicated. I laughed. No, it's really not. His fingers drummed against the table, restless. Look, Ayo. Do you love her? I interrupted, my voice colder than I expected. His eyes flicked up to mine, startled. I waited. And then, quietly, he said, I don't know. A pathetic answer, but an honest one. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. You need to end it. Daniel frowned. You don't get to tell me what to do. I smiled. Actually, I do. And then, I pulled out my second phone. The one Olivia didn't know about. The one I had used to record every conversation she had with him. Daniel's face drained of color. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about me and Olivia. This was about him. His career. His reputation. His entire life. And now? I was in control. Daniel stared at the phone on the table, his expression shifting from shock to something colder, calculating. He thought he could find a way out of this. He was wrong. I let the silence stretch, savoring the moment. For the first time since this started, I wasn't the one at a disadvantage. Let's make one thing clear, I said, my voice quiet but firm. I don't care about your excuses. I don't care about whatever lies Olivia has told you. But what I do care about, what you should care about, is what happens next. Daniel swallowed hard, but he didn't speak. Good. That meant he was listening. I tapped the screen of my second phone, playing a snippet of their last phone call. Olivia's voice, sweet and breathy. I can't stop thinking about last night. I wish I was with you right now instead of him. Daniel flinched. I hit pause. There's more. A lot more. He clenched his jaw, his hands tightening into fists on the table. What do you want? I smiled. That's the right question. Because this wasn't just about revenge. It wasn't about catching them. I had already done that. This was about making sure Olivia never saw this coming. You're going to end it, I said. Tonight. His brows furrowed. And if I don't? I shrugged. Then I send these recordings to your board of directors. To your wife? Oh, you thought I didn't know about her. I chuckled at the flicker of panic in his eyes. I know everything, Daniel. I even know about the little vacation you and Olivia took 6 months ago. The one that wasn't on your credit card. He stiffened. I leaned in closer, lowering my voice. You think this is your scandal to manage? No. This is mine now. And I'll ruin you before you even have the chance to blink. Daniel exhaled sharply, dragging a hand down his face. He looked exhausted. Good. Finally, after a long silence, he nodded. Fine. It's over. I smiled. Not yet, I murmured. But it will be. The final play. I left the cafe knowing I had won. But the game wasn't over. Not until Olivia felt everything I had felt. Not until she watched the world she built collapse around her. I checked my watch. She should be getting off work soon. Perfect. I pulled out my phone and typed a message. Olivia, we need to talk. Meet me at the house at 7. She replied almost instantly. Everything okay? I smirked. Not even close. By the time Olivia walked through the front door at 7 p.m., I was already waiting. She was dressed sharp, too sharp for a normal workday. A navy silk blouse, tailored black pants, heels a little too high for the office. She had taken the time to dress for him. But Daniel wasn't the one she was coming home to tonight. I was. She smiled as she set her purse down, slipping effortlessly into the role she had perfected, the loving wife, the woman with nothing to hide. Hey, she said, walking toward me. What's up? I tilted my head, studying her. She was good. So damn good. But not good enough. Sit, I said, my voice calm, controlled. A flicker of hesitation crossed her face. What's going on? I gestured to the chair across from me. Sit, Olivia. She let out a soft, nervous laugh. Okay, you're freaking me out. But she sat. I let a silence settle between us. Let her feel the weight of it. Then, I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. The screen lit up with the pictures. Daniel's hand on hers. The stolen glances. The intimate smiles over candlelight. Undeniable. I slid the phone across the table. Tell me, I said, my voice deceptively quiet. How was dinner with Claire? The color drained from her face. Her lips parted slightly, as if searching for the right words. But for once, she had none. I leaned forward, my elbows on the table. Take your time. She swallowed hard, her fingers tightening into fists in her lap. But she stopped. Because there was nothing left to say. I let the silence stretch. And then, in the calmest voice I had ever used, I said, I know everything. The fall. She inhaled sharply, shaking her head. It's not what it looks like. I almost laughed. Almost. Not what it looks like? I repeated, tilting my head. Tell me, Olivia, what does it look like? She blinked rapidly, trying to find an escape. But the walls were closing in. So, she did what people like her always do, she lied. We're just friends. I let out a slow breath, shaking my head. Friends. She nodded, latching onto the lie like it could save her. Yes. I picked up my phone again, tapped the screen, and then I played her own voice back to her. I can't stop thinking about last night. I wish I was with you right now instead of him. Her entire body went still. I watched as realization crashed over her, the moment she knew she had lost. She reached for the phone, as if she could somehow erase the evidence, but I pulled it back. I wasn't done yet. I met Daniel today, I said. She flinched. He told me it's over. I continued, my voice like ice. So now, Olivia, I want to hear it from you. I leaned in closer, locking my gaze with hers. How long? Her breath hitched. How long, Olivia? Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't feel pity. Not anymore. Finally, in a voice so small I almost didn't hear it, she whispered, a year. The words landed like a hammer to the chest, but I refused to let her see the impact, because I had already made my decision. I stood, pushing my chair back. Pack a bag. She looked up at me, eyes wide. What? I nodded toward the stairs. Go upstairs, pack a bag, and leave. Her mouth opened and closed, like she couldn't process what was happening. You don't mean that. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Oh, I absolutely do. She shook her head. We can fix this. Please. I made a mistake, but... A mistake, I repeated, stepping closer. You don't trip and fall into a year-long affair, Olivia. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. Over, and over, and over again. Tears spilled onto her cheeks. I love you. My jaw clenched. No, Olivia. You loved what I gave you. You loved the security, the comfort, the lie. But you stopped loving me a long time ago. She broke down then, shoulders shaking, hands trembling. But I felt nothing. Because Olivia had already burned this marriage to the ground. I was just watching the ashes fall. The end of us. I stood there as she cried, unmoving, unshaken. And when she finally realized I wouldn't change my mind, she rose to her feet and walked up the stairs. She didn't argue, didn't fight, because she knew. She had lost. I listened as she packed, the sound of zippers and shuffling fabric filling the empty spaces between us. And when she finally came back down, her suitcase in hand, I opened the door. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't need to. She stepped outside, turning back one last time, as if searching for something. One last chance, one last moment of redemption. But there was nothing left for her here. So she walked away. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I finally felt free. The door clicked shut behind her, but the silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, thick with everything left unsaid, with the ghosts of a marriage that had crumbled right before my eyes. I stood there for a long time, staring at the door as if she might walk back in, as if she might try one last time to salvage what was already beyond saving. But she didn't, and I knew she wouldn't, because Olivia had spent the past year choosing him. Now, I had finally chosen myself. I exhaled slowly, stepping away from the door. The house suddenly felt too big, too empty, too quiet. I had been waiting for this moment, fighting for it. And yet, now that she was gone, there was no satisfaction, no grand sense of victory. Just exhaustion. I walked to the kitchen, grabbed the bottle of whiskey from the counter, and poured myself a drink. One glass, then another. The burn did nothing to dull the thoughts racing through my head. How had it come to this? Had she ever loved me the way I had loved her? Or had I just been something convenient? Something safe? I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. It didn't matter anymore. Because Olivia was gone, and I needed to figure out what came next. The first call. My phone buzzed, cutting through the silence. I glanced down at the screen, expecting it to be her. Maybe she had left something behind. Maybe she had one more lie to tell. But it wasn't Olivia. It was Daniel. I smirked. Of course. I let it ring twice before answering. Didn't expect to hear from you so soon. There was a pause on the other end. Then his voice, low, tense. What did you say to her? I swirled the whiskey in my glass, amused. Nothing she didn't already know. He exhaled sharply. She's upset. I almost laughed. Upset? Oh, Daniel. I set my drink down, leaning back in my chair. Tell me something, Daniel. Do you actually give a damn about her? Or was she just a game to you? Another pause. Longer this time. I don't know, he admitted. And that told me everything. I exhaled slowly. Well, it doesn't matter now. She's your problem. Daniel hesitated. So that's it. You just threw her out. I smirked. Why? You planning on moving her in? Silence. I chuckled, shaking my head. That's what I thought. Because men like Daniel never actually wanted women like Olivia. Not permanently. Not when the thrill of sneaking around was gone. He had chased her because she was forbidden. Because she was someone else's. Now that she wasn't nearly as exciting. I think we're done here, I said, my voice cold. Don't call me again. And before he could say another word, I hung up. Let him figure out what to do with the wreckage. I was done cleaning up Olivia's messes. The weight of silence. The night stretched on, the weight of it pressing against me. I thought I would feel relief, that I would fall into bed and sleep like a man who had finally been freed. But instead, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Because no matter how much I wanted to believe otherwise, part of me still felt broken. Not because I missed Olivia, I didn't, but because I had spent years believing in something that had never truly existed. And now, I had to figure out how to live without the illusion. I closed my eyes, letting the exhaustion pull me under. Tomorrow, I would start over. Tomorrow, I would begin again. But tonight, I would let myself grieve. Morning came, but it didn't bring relief. The house was still. Too still. No sound of Olivia in the kitchen, humming softly as she made coffee. No scent of her perfume lingering in the air. No distant rustling of her getting ready in the other room. Just absence. I sat up in bed, rubbing my hands over my face. The night before had been long, whiskey-soaked and heavy with thoughts I didn't want to have. But today was different. Today was the start of something new. Erasing her. I moved through the house with quiet purpose, gathering the remnants of her. The framed photos of us on vacations, at weddings, at dinner parties gone. Her clothes in the closet, her makeup on the bathroom counter. The books she never finished reading, packed away. Every trace of Olivia, every reminder of what she had been to me, was removed piece by piece. Until the house felt lighter. Until I felt lighter. When I was done, I stood in the middle of the living room, staring at the empty space where her presence had once been. And I breathed. For the first time in a long time, I could finally breathe. The final goodbye. I didn't expect to hear from her again. After the way things ended, I figured Olivia would do what she did best, run. But that evening, my phone buzzed. Olivia. I let it ring twice before answering. What do you want? Her voice was quiet. Smaller. Can we talk? I almost laughed. Talk? Now? She hesitated. I just need to see you. One last time. I exhaled. Olivia, there's nothing left to say. Please, she whispered. And against my better judgment, I agreed. One last conversation. One last time to look her in the eyes and finally let go. The meeting. We met at a small park near our old apartment, just as the sun was setting. She was already there when I arrived, sitting on a bench, arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold something together. She looked tired. She looked defeated. Good. I stopped a few feet away. Say what you need to say. She turned toward me, eyes glassy with unshed tears. I don't know how to fix this. I let out a slow breath. You can't. She swallowed hard. I never wanted to lose you. I tilted my head. Then why did you throw me away? She blinked rapidly, like she hadn't expected me to ask that, like she hadn't spent an entire year making choice after choice that led us here. I don't know, she admitted, her voice breaking, and that was the moment I knew I was done, because there was nothing left for me here. No apology, no explanation, just a woman who had made her choices, and a man who was finally walking away. I looked at her one last time, then turned and left. She didn't call after me. She didn't try to stop me, because she knew, just as I did, that this was the end. Freedom. As I walked through the quiet streets, a strange feeling settled over me. Relief. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't heartbroken. I was just free. And for the first time in a long time, I looked forward to whatever came next. Without her. The end. If you like this story, please like and subscribe to the channel.